What happens when a beloved talk show host pushes too far and a royal guest decides he's had enough? You won't believe what unfolded when Prince Harry sat down with Kelly Clarkson for what was meant to be a simple promotional appearance but turned into one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. The tension was palpable from the moment the cameras started rolling, but no one could have predicted the meltdown that was about to tear through Studio 6B. The episode was supposed to promote Prince Harry's upcoming memoir sequel, but what viewers witnessed instead was a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral out of control when egos clash and boundaries are crossed. Kelly Clarkson, known for her warmth and humor, seemed unusually tense as she introduced her guest. Her smile looked forced, and there was a sharpness in her eyes that hinted at an agenda beyond the usual celebrity chat. Prince Harry, dressed sharply in a navy suit, carried himself with confidence, though a careful observer might have noticed the tightness in his jaw and shoulders. The trouble began almost immediately. During what should have been harmless small talk, Kelly leaned forward with a deceptively sweet smile and asked, "So, Harry, I have to ask about your recent visit to London. There's been speculation about whether you actually spent time with your father during his health struggles, or if that was just another publicity stunt." The question landed like a grenade. Harry's expression shifted ever so slightly, a flicker of something darker behind his eyes. "Kelly," he replied evenly, "there's been a lot of misinformation about my family. My relationship with them is complicated. But when it comes to my father's health, that's not something I use for publicity." But Kelly wasn't backing down. "You've written books, done interviews, and shared family secrets with the world," she pressed. "Can you really blame people for questioning your motives when you suddenly show up claiming to be a concerned son?" The audience began to sense that something was off. This wasn't Kelly's usual warm interview style. This was pointed, confrontational. Prince Harry tried to stay calm, replying, "Despite everything, they're still my family. When someone you care about is sick, you put aside your differences. That's what normal people do." Kelly's smile tightened. "Normal people, Harry? Because normal people don't usually have the luxury of airing their family's dirty laundry on global television and then expect sympathy." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Harry's publicist shifted uncomfortably in the front row, signaling subtly to the producers to intervene, but Kelly pressed on. "Let's be honest," she continued, her tone sharper now. "You've spent years criticizing your family and your country. You've accused them of terrible things. And now you want us to see you as the loving son?" Harry's jaw clenched. "I've never trashed my family," he said, his voice controlled but tight. "I've shared my experiences, which I have every right to do. And yes, I love my father." Kelly leaned back, arms folded. "Your truth, Harry, that's interesting. Because from where I'm sitting, your truth has been pretty profitable. Book deals, Netflix contracts, speaking tours. You've monetized your family trauma quite effectively." The accusation hit hard. Harry's composure slipped. "Are you seriously suggesting I've exploited my trauma for money? That's insulting. I've been open about my struggles because it helps others." Kelly shrugged lightly. "I'm just saying what people are thinking. You said you wanted privacy, but since leaving the royal family, all you've done is talk about them. It's hard to reconcile that." The studio fell completely silent. This was no longer entertainment. This was raw confrontation. Harry leaned forward, his voice low. "Kelly, be careful about your assumptions. You don't know what my family's been through, or why we made the choices we did." But Kelly pressed on. "Oh, I think we all know what you've been through, Harry. You've told us in great detail. The real question is whether all this soul-bearing is about healing, or just staying relevant now that you're no longer a working royal." Her words hung in the air like a challenge, and the entire studio held its breath, waiting to see how the prince would respond. The cameras captured every micro-expression and subtle shift in body language as the tension reached an almost unbearable level. What happened next would change everything. and no one in that studio was prepared for the explosion that followed. Prince Harry's eyes narrowed as he processed Kelly's accusation about staying relevant. The mask of royal composure he'd worn his entire life began to slip, and everyone could see it happening. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a cold fury that seemed to chill the air itself. "Staying relevant?" Harry repeated, his accent sharpening with anger. "Kelly, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. You think this is about relevance? You think I enjoy having my private life dissected by strangers? You think I wanted any of this?" Kelly, realizing she'd struck a nerve, could have stepped back, but instead she pressed forward. "Well, Harry, if you didn't want it dissected, maybe you shouldn't have put it all out there. You can't have it both ways. You can't sell your story and then complain when people have opinions." The audience held its breath. Producers at the edge of the set signaled frantically to cut to commercial. But Kelly was locked in, determined to push this confrontation to its limit. Harry stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with a harsh echo. "You know what, Kelly? I came here thinking I'd have a civilized conversation with someone I respected. Clearly, I was wrong." Kelly's eyes widened, but she didn't back down. "Oh, so now I'm the bad guy? I'm just asking the tough questions no one else will. Someone needs to call you out on your hypocrisy." "Hypocrisy?" Harry's voice rose, his emotion breaking through. "You want to talk about hypocrisy? Let's talk about how you've built your entire career on being the relatable celebrity, the one who understands struggle and pain. Yet here you are attacking someone for sharing their truth about trauma and mental health. Where's your empathy now, Kelly?" The words hit hard. For the first time, Kelly's composure cracked. "Don't you dare turn this around on me," she snapped. "I've never monetized my family's private life like you have." "Haven't you?" Harry shot back. "What about every time you've discussed your divorce on air? The songs about your relationships? The stories about your childhood? How is that any different?" Kelly's face flushed red. "Because I'm not destroying my family in the process. I'm not accusing them of racism and neglect on a global stage." "And there it is," Harry said quietly, his voice like a blade. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? You can't stand that I spoke out about the racism my wife faced. You can't stand that I exposed the ugly truth about an institution you'd rather keep as a fairy tale." The studio erupted in murmurs. This was no longer an interview. It was a reckoning. Kelly's mask fell away, revealing raw hostility. Your wife knew what she was getting into. She knew the scrutiny. And instead of handling it with grace, she played the victim and dragged you down with her. The room froze. Even the camera operators stopped moving. Harry's face shifted through shock, disbelief, and then pure rage. "How dare you?" he said, his voice shaking. "How dare you attack my wife? She did nothing wrong except fall in love with the wrong person. She endured things no one should have to. And she did it with more grace than you're showing right now." Kelly tried to recover. "Harry, I'm not attacking anyone, I'm just—" "No," Harry cut in sharply. "You don't get to backtrack now. You've shown your true colors, Kelly. You've shown everyone exactly who you are, and it's ugly." The audience sat frozen. A few people in the front row looked visibly uncomfortable. One even pulled out a phone to record despite the no-filming rule. Kelly's desperation became visible. "Harry, please, let's just calm down." "Calm down?" Harry let out a bitter laugh. "You've spent the last 20 minutes attacking my character, my motives, my family, and my wife. And now you want me to calm down? You've got some nerve." Producers waved frantically to cut to commercial, but Kelly pressed on. "Look, Harry, I think we've both said things we might regret. Maybe we should just—" "The only thing I regret," Harry interrupted, "is agreeing to come on this show. I thought you were different. I thought you understood what it means to fight for what's right. But you're just another person who tears others down to get ratings." Kelly's face flushed with anger. "I'm not trying to tear anyone down. I'm trying to get to the truth." The truth? Harry's voice was ice. The truth is, you're a bully hiding behind a microphone. You've used your platform tonight to attack someone who's already been through more than you can imagine. The truth is, you've shown your audience exactly what kind of person you really are. The words landed like blows. Kelly recoiled, her confidence finally faltering. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, the control room cut the feed, ending what would become one of the most talked-about moments in talk show history. These are questions that need to be asked. Overly sensitive? Harry's voice rose, the rage behind it unmistakable. You attack my wife. You question my love for my father. You accuse me of exploiting my own trauma. And I'm being overly sensitive? You're delusional, Kelly. The studio crackled with tension. Everyone could sense this was building towards something explosive, something that would be talked about for years to come. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of this unprecedented meltdown. Kelly, realizing she was losing control, made one final, fatal mistake. Maybe if you spent less time playing the victim and more time taking responsibility for your actions, people would have more sympathy for you. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Everyone in the studio knew Kelly had just crossed a line from which there was no return. Prince Harry's face went white, then red with fury. The explosion that followed would be unlike anything daytime television had ever seen. Playing the victim? Harry's voice dropped to a deadly quiet. The calm before the storm. You think I'm playing the victim? Let me tell you something, Kelly. I watched my mother die because of people like you. I watched the media destroy her, tear her apart piece by piece, until she couldn't take it anymore. And now you're sitting here using your platform to do the same thing to me and my family? The studio fell silent. Kelly's face went pale. For the first time since the interview began, she looked genuinely frightened by what she had unleashed. Harry, I never, she began. He cut her off with a gesture that radiated royal authority. No, you don't get to speak now. You've said quite enough. His voice shook with anger, but every word was clear. You want to talk about taking responsibility? Let's talk about your responsibility. You have a platform that reaches millions, and you've chosen to use it tonight to bully and attack someone who came here in good faith. Kelly tried to interrupt again, but Harry wasn't finished. The floodgates had opened. Years of frustration and anger poured out. You want to know what playing the victim looks like? It looks like someone who builds their entire career on being the underdog, the relatable star who overcame adversity, and then uses that platform to tear down someone else trying to do the same. That's what a victim looks like, Kelly. That's what you are. The cameras captured every second of Kelly's mounting panic. Her producers frantically gestured to cut to commercial, but she waved them off, determined to see it through. You think you're so much better than me? She shot back, her voice cracking. You think because you were born into privilege, because you had a title that makes you special? You're nothing without that family you claim to hate so much. If Kelly thought this would wound him, she was wrong. It only sharpened his anger into something colder. There it is, Harry said, his tone icy. The real Kelly Clarkson, not the sweet, understanding host you pretend to be. You're jealous. You're jealous that despite everything I've been through, despite losing my mother, despite the trauma, despite walking away from everything I knew, I still have something you'll never have. And what's that? Kelly spat. Authenticity, Harry replied without hesitation. I've never pretended to be perfect. I've never claimed to have all the answers, but I've been honest about my struggles, my mistakes, my pain. You? You're performing. You're playing a character. And tonight, the mask slipped. The audience was transfixed. Several people were openly recording despite security's attempts to stop them. Everyone knew they were witnessing television history. You want to talk about authenticity? Kelly shouted, desperate. You abandoned your grandmother in her final years. You missed her funeral because you were too busy making Netflix deals. It was a lie, and everyone knew it. Harry had attended the Queen's funeral, but Kelly was past caring about facts. She was in full attack mode. Harry's response was swift and brutal. "How dare you lie about my grandmother? How dare you use her memory as a weapon against me? You're despicable, Kelly. You're everything that's wrong with celebrity culture, with media culture, with this toxic need to destroy people for entertainment." The studio erupted in gasps. Several audience members shook their heads in disgust at Kelly's behavior. "You want to know the difference between us?" Harry continued, his voice steady now. "When I make mistakes, I own them. When I hurt people, I apologize. When I'm wrong, I admit it. But you'll go home tonight and tell yourself you were just doing your job, that you were asking the tough questions. You'll justify this disgusting display because the alternative is admitting that you're a bully." Kelly's face was streaked with tears, though no one could tell if they came from regret or rage. "You don't know anything about me," she whispered. "I know enough," Harry said coldly. "I know you had a choice tonight. You could have used your platform to talk about mental health, family, overcoming adversity. Instead, you chose to attack, for ratings, for clicks, for the thrill of making someone else suffer." The studio was utterly still. Even the cameras seemed frozen. Harry stood, his full height imposing. "You know what the saddest part is?" he said quietly. "I actually respected you. I thought you were different. I thought you understood what it meant to fight for something better. But you're just another person who tears people down instead of building them up." "Harry, please," Kelly tried one last time. "I think we've both—" "No," Harry cut in, final and firm. "We haven't both done anything. You did this. You chose this. And now you live with the consequences." He removed his microphone with deliberate care and set it on the table between them. "You want to know what taking responsibility looks like?" he asked, his voice carrying across the room. "It looks like walking away when someone shows you who they really are. It looks like refusing to participate in toxicity. It looks like having enough self-respect to say, 'Enough?' Harry, please don't go," Kelly whispered. "We can fix this." He looked at her with something like pity. "There's nothing to fix, Kelly. This is who you are. This is what you chose to be tonight, and I refuse to be part of it any longer." The silence was deafening as he turned his back on her and walked toward the exit. Every inch the prince he was born to be. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harry called to the audience without turning around, "I apologize that you had to witness this. You deserve better than what you saw here tonight. You all deserve better." With that, Prince Harry walked off the set, leaving behind a stunned audience, a devastated host, and what would become one of the most talked-about moments in television history. Kelly Clarkson sat alone at her desk, tears streaming down her face, finally understanding the full weight of what she had done. The cameras kept rolling, capturing her breakdown until, mercifully, someone called for a commercial break. But the damage was done. The mask had slipped, and there was no going back. As the credits rolled on what would be Kelly's final show, everyone in that studio knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just a celebrity meltdown, but a raw, human reckoning that would be remembered long after the cameras stopped.